Good evening, and welcome to the Maryland 586 Veers Mill Road Bus Rapid Transit Study public meeting. This meeting is sponsored by the Montgomery County Department of Transportation, or MCDOT, and the Maryland Department of Transportation. The purpose of today's meeting is to present the alternatives developed for a potential bus rapid transit system along Veers Mill Road and to obtain your thoughts and comments on those alternatives. Thank you for joining us this evening. This video will explain the features that make up a bus rapid transit or BRT system. It will also provide the history of prior studies along Veers Mill Road and describe the alternatives developed and analyzed for the BRT. This video is intended to be a brief overview. Complete details about the project are provided on the boards at tonight's meeting. BRT is a bus system that is similar to a rail or subway system. Since it runs on wheels instead of rails, it is much more flexible than a rail system. Unlike a local bus system which operates on a schedule, BRT operates on set headways or times between buses. With buses arriving more frequently and with fewer stops, passengers get to their destinations sooner. Bus rapid transit includes many different elements that come together to create one cohesive system, including dedicated lanes, stations, level boarding at multiple doors, pay before you board capabilities, and branding that identify it as a system separate from the local buses. The elements of the BRT system work to create a premium bus service. Notice the canopy area for waiting passengers, the vehicle stopped at the station platform, and the ticket vending machine where you purchase a ticket before boarding the bus. Also notice how the green pavement helps clearly identify the dedicated bus lane. BRT is part of an established and growing trend in the United States. Many cities across the U.S. have already implemented BRT. Cleveland, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Eugene, Oregon are home to some of the most well-known and highest-rated BRT systems in the U.S. Locally, WMATA's Metroway is a starter BRT system that is running along U.S. Route 1 in Alexandria, Virginia. Many more municipalities, including Montgomery County, have planning studies underway to consider future BRT opportunities. Prior to 2011, when this study began, MCDOT, the County Council, and WMATA supported and endorsed bus rapid transit in this corridor. In 2012 and 13, the County Executive's Transit Task Force recommended that the corridor include BRT, and the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission adopted the Countywide Transit Corridors Functional Master Plan, which identified Veers Mill Road as one of 10 recommended BRT corridors in the county. For this study, we collected information on the existing conditions, identified the purpose for the project, developed preliminary alternatives that were presented at a public workshop in 2013, and selected a reduced list of alternatives to evaluate in more detail, also called ARDS. 8 Corridor Advisory Committee, or CAC meetings were held with residents and business owners to help refine and evaluate the ARDS. The result of the alternatives comparison are summarized in a draft summary report. Today's public meeting, shown in the green box, identifies that we are nearly complete with this study. Following this meeting, we will identify one recommended alternative to carry forward. The purpose of this project is to evaluate options for high-speed bus service along Veers Mill Road between the Rockville and Wheaton Metro Rail stations. The project is needed to connect sections of the transit network so riders can move more efficiently through the county. It is intended to encourage new riders to take transit rather than drive their car, and to support development in the corridor by creating a more livable community with more transportation opportunities. The 4 alternatives that are being presented at tonight's meeting were once part of a larger set of 10 conceptual alternatives. These alternatives were presented at a public workshop in November 2013. Comments received from the public at the public workshop and a feasibility analysis by the project team were used to narrow the 10 alternatives down to 4 alternatives retained for detailed study, or the ARDs. The 4 alternatives that were retained are alternatives 1, 2, 3, and 5B. Let's review the 4 ARDs. Alternative 1 is the no-build alternative. Alternative 2 is the Transportation System Management, or TSM alternative. Alternative 3 includes new BRT service in curb-running dedicated lanes, and Alternative 5B includes new BRT service in median-running dedicated lanes. Preliminary engineering alignments have been developed for the 3 build alternatives. Be sure to stop by the mapping stations to look at how Veers Mill Road would change under each alternative. Alternative 1 is the no-build alternative. It does not include any changes to the existing bus services that operate along the corridor, nor does it include any infrastructure improvements to Veers Mill Road. The existing bus services would continue to operate in the existing lanes in mixed traffic as they do today. The no-build alternative is always carried forward in an alternatives analysis because it serves as a baseline for comparing the build alternatives. Alternative 2 is called the Transportation System Management, or TSM alternative. TSM refers to a strategy of implementing low-cost, low-impact improvements to meet the project's purpose and need. Therefore, the improvements are less substantial than what is proposed in the other build alternatives. For example, the proposed service in Alternative 2 would be an enhanced bus service, similar to WMATA's proposed Q9 Express bus service, rather than a completely new BRT service. Furthermore, the physical infrastructure improvements along Veers Mill Road would be limited to a handful of intersections, which would be widened to provide room for a Q-jump lane, as shown in the typical section. Other improvements include upgrading the bus stops to include more amenities and installing green light priority signaling at several intersections to help improve the travel time of the buses. Alternative 3 includes new BRT service where the BRT vehicles would operate in a dedicated bus and right turn only lane along the curb. The dedicated lane would only be provided in areas without significant impacts to the adjacent property owners. Wherever a dedicated lane cannot be provided, the BRT vehicles would travel in mixed traffic as the buses do today. Alternative 3 would also include construction of new BRT stations along the corridor. The stations would be larger and have more features than the existing bus stops. Similar to Alternative 3, Alternative 5B would also include implementing a new BRT service. BRT vehicles would operate in dedicated median lanes that are separated from the general traffic lanes. To narrow the footprint of the roadway and reduce property impacts, a one-lane, bi-directional median lane is proposed in Rockville. Both eastbound and westbound BRT buses would be allowed to use the one-lane section at the same time because it would widen the 2 lanes at the stations to allow buses traveling in opposite directions the chance to pass one another. Similar to Alternative 3, Alternative 5B would also include construction of new BRT stations. The bidirectional section would include one median lane separated by a concrete divider. The one-lane section would widen to 2 lanes at stations to allow BRT vehicles traveling in the opposite direction a chance to pass each other. In other locations along the corridor, a 2-lane median section is proposed. In both the 1-lane and 2-lane scenarios, the median lane or lanes would only be used by the BRT vehicles, while all other bus services would use the general traffic lanes as they do today. All 4 alternatives retained for detailed study have been reviewed to better understand how they would benefit, impact, and affect Veers Mill Road and the surrounding community. The analysis included factors such as expected ridership, travel times, costs, traffic operations, and environmental impacts. The results of these analyses can be found on the boards on display at tonight's meeting. The public input gathered from tonight's meeting will also be used to evaluate the alternatives. As you visit the various stations and review the analysis results, please feel free to ask questions and talk to the project team members to get a better understanding of each alternative. Tonight's meeting is an important milestone because the public input gathered tonight and through October 14th, 2016 will help inform the project. The leadership of Montgomery County, SHA, and MTA are expected to select a recommended alternative in December. The team will then finalize the corridor study report in March 2017. Public comments are one of the most important considerations when selecting a recommended alternative, so please take the time to tell us what you think. Stop by the comment station on your way out this evening to fill out a comment card or to have a stenographer record your verbal comments. If you would like to comment electronically, please send an email with your comment to md586brt@sha.state.md.us. The deadline to provide comments is October 14th, 2016. We now invite you to watch a brief BRT video before walking around to the various stations to review the alternatives and boards in more detail. Feel free to ask questions, talk with the project team, and other community members as you visit each station. We thank you for your support tonight and look forward to hearing from you.